when we go through this history of what God has done for mankind, as recorded in His history, you know, we read a lot of things that happen. A lot of people make some bad choices. Some good people make some bad choices all the way through. You know, they'll talk about Abraham by faith. Abraham did this and that, but Abraham actually told some lies along the way too. You know, he didn't always tell the truth, and he did some things. He actually committed murder. He killed people. He did some things that we would probably condemn, but yet he was still considered a man, a faithful man of God. And through him is whenever we see the beginning of the promise starting to show daylight, when we finally get to that morning, that night when the Savior finally comes into the world. We see the first light. When you start reading the story, it's kind of a little vague at first, but then when Abraham comes on the scene, it becomes a little bit clearer, because he says, through your seed, all the world is going to be blessed. Now, in hindsight, we can see that. Now, I don't know what that meant to Abraham. I mean, what? Especially when he's still in the land of the Chaldeans. He's really not really that in tune with God yet. And then God tells him, go to this land that you know nothing about. That, of course, we see it today. We don't think it's a land flowing with milk and honey, do we? It's like, who would want that? But back then it was. Okay? Back then it was a lot more fruitful. So he promises Abraham this. And we see it. In hindsight, we see it. But what did he see? And what did the people around him see? I mean, if you were sitting there and Abraham said, hey, you know, we're going to go, and okay, just be his nephew, Lot. Come on, Lot, we're going to go to this land over here. And
thought he was crazy, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
And then we go to the next step, to his son and their son, and going through the thing to see all the different things happening in that time. Then we get to Moses. Now, what would you do? What would you do if somebody come up to you and say, hey, you know what? This voice from a burning bush told me to go take 2 million people from the Egyptians, slaves from the Egyptians, and take them to the promised land. What would you do? Yeah, right. I mean,
What'd you say?
I'd go herd some sheep and run away from that.
Yeah, I mean, today we'd be looking for somebody with a white coat to come get this guy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we do. All through, when we read this stuff today, we read stuff, oh yeah, we understand, because we have, you know, we're smarter than the people there at that time.
Hindsight.
We have his history, right?
Yeah.
We have his history. So we are very blessed. We talk about how blessed we are in this country. It's not just blessed about being monetary means, but it's also blessed to understand what God has done for us. Now, if we look at one thing we really do, I mean, that we don't really do a very good job, I've said this before, is we not learn from history. And as we read history, we learn that they didn't learn very much from history either.
Yes, that's right.
So now we get to Moses. Now, not only talk about Moses himself, we look at the thing, but we talk about how through all this promise keeps coming up. This promise of something's going to happen in the future. Now, how many of you like waiting for a promise?
No.
Instant, right?
Yeah, right now. But how patient is God? And how did he want things to line up so that when the time came, he would step through that portal, whatever that portal is, from the spiritual realm, and we use birth, you know, but he had to do it in a different manner than we did, because it was not like, you know, a natural thing with, you know, reproduction of man and woman. It was a supernatural thing with the spirit You know, so this portal was open, God came to earth. So when this going through this whole time, and he knows this is going to happen, but now we've got this time frame that people are living through. It's not like we see it as a like that. We look like they go through it. Like I've read from the whole Old Testament and into the book of John, and it's just been 10 months. That's not a very long period of time. We talk about thousands of years I've covered in that time. So we go through that. But they were continually see this promise in front of them. It was kind of like, anybody ever seen what they used to do where they had a donkey out there, would run the grist mill and have the corn or something out in front of the donkey where the donkey was always trying to go get it? It was kind of like that. There was always something out there where they were seeing this promise in front of them. This entire time, this year after year, decade after decade, century after century. And people were dying. People were said, man, when is it going to happen? And when it did happen, well, we know some of the things that happened when it did happen. People didn't recognize it. So as they're going, I mean, and I don't know if we would have either. I mean, we can say, yeah, I would have recognized it, but we don't know. We don't know if we'd have recognized it. I mean, I would have thought, hopefully, that if I saw the things that this guy was doing, that I would say, yes, this is a fulfillment of all them prophecies that I've heard about in the past. I don't know. So as we go through this, and we think about the time, we have to try to, I want you guys to try to think about this. That you're actually there looking to the future, not looking in the past, not knowing what's already happened, but what's going to happen, and looking forward to it. Because in the Hebrews it talks about these people look forward to this promise. Even though they knew they were going to, they didn't make it to the promise, they were continuing to look forward to the promise. Abraham never really got the promise. He never really received the promised land, even though he was promised to. And he lived a long time, but he's never got it. A lot of people through that time frame lived a long time, but they never received the promise. Even Moses never got to go into the promised land because of what did he do? He made a bad choice. And that's one thing we need to, ourselves, adults first, and our children, we need to get everybody to understand as we go through life, it's the choices we make that makes us go into that promised land. We make bad choices, we won't make it there. We make good choices, we will. Now, we may not always make the right choice, but sometimes, because always, 100% of the time, hindsight is 20/20. 100% of the time. But sometimes we'll make a choice, we think we know what we see. It's kind of like the promise we talk about. They thought they knew that when they was going this direction, they was going the right direction, and somebody said, no, you're going the wrong direction. David thought that, Abraham thought that, all the faithful guys that's in the book of faith thought that they were going the right direction. And sometimes, they made a left-hand turn when we're supposed to make a right-hand turn. But